Uh, Dr. Amit N. Joshi has completed his MTech in 2009 from SVNIT Surat, NIT Surat, and also obtained doctoral of philosophy degree from the same institute in 2015. But before that, he has joined us, and he is here for last more than 7 or 8 years. He is currently working as assistant prof AG1. His area of exploration are biomedical signal processing, smart healthcare, real-side DSP architectures, and embedded system design. He has published well in international peer-reviewed journals with high impact factors, mostly in the field of smart embedded system for healthcare. He has published 6 book chapters and more than 50 plus research articles. He has been on the review board of IEEE Transaction, IEEE Access, Springer Elsevier, and on technical program committees of many conferences. He has also received many travel fellowships from UGC, SERB, CSIR, DST, and has attended various conferences and chaired sessions there. He has done supervision of more than 20 MTech theses, and I think he has recently has a privilege of passing out 2 PhD students, and about 5 to 6 PhD students are also working with him, continuing with him. So I hand over to Amit. Amit, welcome, please.
Thank you, sir, for introduction. I hope my slides are visible to all of you. I hope, sir, my slides are visible now. First page.
स्लाइड्स विजिबल है अमित, और प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में डालना है या ओपन रखना है वो तुम्हारा। स्लाइड्स आर विजिबल।
ठीक है, ओके सर। So means welcome to day 4 of a system Verilog. I think Professor Ravi Kumar sir has already explained the basics of the few things of the system Verilog. I will just move ahead with that. So basically, I will talk about some basics of the verification. Quickly, I go through it, but mainly I will talk about the randomization. Sir has already introduced regarding the same yesterday. Then mainly I will focus about the assertion based verification, and at last we will see some examples. So verification. So probably I will quickly go through it, but if you look at the overall IC diagram, then you will find out the verification at a different stages. Okay, so every time when you do something in a design, at that time you do a verify. So ideally, in a total IC design flow cycle, 70% of efforts are dedicated towards the verification. Okay, so for a verification engineer also, it is a very tedious job, because it has to also verify all the cases which may be not seen by a designer. So this is just a verification. I am just skipping this. So in our normal life also we do verify, even when I used to go to a ATM and when I withdraw some money, let's say 5,000 rupees. So 5,000 rupees when I withdraw, then also I will verify it. Okay, whether whatever the money is being withdrawn by ATM, whether it is correct one or not. So when I talk about the verification, then for a verification, the actual value, or you can consider as a golden model values, are very important, that we are defining as a reference value also. So that means whenever I am starting the verification, I know that what I am expected. Okay, so like in an example of a ATM transaction, when I enter some money 5,000, then I know that it should come out to a 5,000. So once the money comes out, then I will actually verify whatever is received by me and whatever I have entered. So ultimately in verification, I do match my actual value with the expected value. So it is basically to verify the correctness. So basically means we need to identify a bug. Okay, so bug is something which is you consider as an unexpected behavior which could happen into your design. So whenever you find out any unexpected behavior from your design, then that is basically defined as a bug. So this is just a verification testing. I think there is, I'm quickly just going through some slide because I think it is being covered. Okay. So basically what I do in a verification. So in a verification, basically whatever I have some design, in this I will provide some sort of stimulus. Okay. And for that stimulus, whatever the expected value that I am getting, that I am always matching with my whatever I am whatever the actual value that I am getting. Sorry, whatever I am getting from a circuit, that is actual value, and whatever I consider that what should be come out, that is my expected values, and I always match these two values. So these are the some biggest problem for the verification, that actually when you start a verification, then it is almost a never ending job. Okay, because once you verify the design, then probably you can say about that these are the bugs, but you can't ensure that there is no bug. So that is the hard fact of the as a verification engineer. So whatever the verification test cases or whatever the verification efforts that you provide, with that only maybe you can ensure about 95 to 98% that your design is bug free, but not it is 100%. Now just to start with the verification, that all of we know a full adder. Okay, so when I talk about the full adder, then for a full adder I know a truth table. Okay, so for a full adder I can consider as a 1-bit adder also. So if I consider to verify a 1-bit adder, then total number of combinations that I need to provide in order to verify this particular full adder is 2⁻3, that is 8. Okay, so what I am saying about that, it is ultimately 2⁻3 is a total number of values that I need to verify. Now if I ask you that this is a 1-bit adder, let's consider that if I ask you to go for a 64-bit adder. Okay, so when I say 64-bit adder, then for a 64-bit adder, what are the different possibilities? So when I say 64-bit adder, then there may be a is a 64-bit, B may be of 64-bit. So there are 2⁻64 into 2⁻64 possibility. Multiply by 2 because I need to also consider that carry value, whether it is 0 or 1. Now these many possibility, if you want to verify in your design, and if I ask you to do it manually, it is a very tedious job. Maybe it will require lots of effort, and even maybe you can miss some of the possibility also. So ultimately, when I do a verification, then I need to adopt some clever techniques in order to verify my design. Okay, so if I look at the only 1-bit adder, now if I see a 1-bit adder, then if I ask you that what are the minimum input that you should verify in order to ensure that this full adder is working. So how many of those can anybody think about? If I ask you to verify this 1-bit adder, that is a full adder, with a minimum number of input. So how many input you require? That should be minimum, and that should actually verify all the functionality of a adder. So if I look at the overall possibility, then it is 8. So that is not a big deal. I can do it. Okay. But if ideally I look at this particular adder design, then there are few important input combination that I need to verify. Okay. So one of the such combination is highlighted at 0, 0, 0, 0. When my inputs all values are 0, then I am interested at what is my output, that is sum and carry. When I look at the second possibility, that is 0, 0, 1. So what this possibility says that my 2 input value is 0 and 1 input value is 1. Now interestingly, if you see from a hardware point of view, then for a hardware point of view, all inputs are equal, whether it is A, B or C. For a hardware point of view, this particular scenario is any of my input value is 1. Remaining are 0. Okay, whether it is A, B or C, any of these are 1. For a hardware point of view, it will treat as the same. Okay, because for a hardware point of view, it doesn't look like as a sequential one. Actually, hardware itself is a concurrent. So the way it will look at the input, that is also at the same way, that it will see that whether from my input, how many input values are 1 and how many input values are 0. So if I look at this, then 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0 and 1, 0, 0. These are the same one. So I am talking about this one, this second value, my third value and my fifth value. So all these values are same. There is no difference from a hardware point of view. So if I look at or if I verify only one value, then also hardware performance doesn't change. You can look at it in a truth table itself that sum and carry values are same. Sum is 1, carry is 0. Are you able to see the? I am not sure. I am moving ahead, but yes, this full header slide is visible. I came to know that it is not visible. Not sure. I think probably in a slide mode it is having some issue. Okay. So sorry if you missed something, but I was at this particular page where I am talking about that in a full header, if I want to verify, then if you look at that total 2 raised to 3, that means total 8 possibilities are there. Okay. So total 8 possibilities are there. So if I look at this, then 2 raised to 3, that is 8 possibilities are there. Now, if I ask you to verify that, what are the minimum possibility that you need to verify surely in order to verify this full header correctly? So these are the 4 possibilities that is being highlighted. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Now, why are these 4 possibilities out of 8? Of course, 8 possibility is not much. So as I said that you can verify all 8 possibilities. There is no harm. Okay. But just to think about that, if I have a 2 raised to 64 multiplied by 2 raised to 64, that is for a 64-bit header possibility, when it is almost impossible that one can actually write down all the input scenario and verify the output. So at that time, we need to cleverly pick that what are the input that I need to verify. So just to build up that concept, I am explaining it with the 1-bit header. So for a 1-bit header out of 8, only 4 possibilities are important. Nothing else. That all are 0, that is very important. All are 1, that is very important. Any one input value is 1. So out of 3, 1 input is 1, remaining 2 values are 0. So that are important. So if you look at this, all this scenario where I have a 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, your output is same. Okay, because for a hardware, it is nothing but only one input, one of its input is 1, remaining are 0. Similarly, if you look at the other possibility, then 0, 1, 1. What is this possibility? 0, 1, 1 is my 2 input values are 1 and remaining are 0. So it is another way my 1 input value is 0 and 2 input values are 1. So for this particular case, so that is this case, and this case, the output are almost same, because for a hardware point of view, 2 inputs are 1 and 1 inputs are 0. So these are the important scenario that I need to look at. Now similarly, when I go for a higher order of header, I need to exactly replicate this concept. Okay, so 2 raised to 64 by 2 raised to 64. If I look at, then all possibility is not important. So what I need to do, I need to always take care of that, whether all the values of 0 are covered or not, whether all the values of 1 are covered or not, whether all the 1 of a particular bit of one input is covered or not, whether 1 of a second input, that is for B, it is being covered or not. So I need to always look at this scenario, and then I need to identify that whether they are being covered or not. Now this concept is very important. This actually we need to define in a concept which is defined as a coverage. Okay, I will talk about more regarding the coverage in my tomorrow's lecture when we will cover the coverage. So at that time you need to actually define some bins. Okay, bins means one values that you are looking for from your input. Okay, now when I talk about 2 raised to 64 multiplied by 2 raised to 64, so that value to write it down, even if I consider a few cases where all are 0, all are 100, that also if I ask you to write it down, it is very actually difficult to write it down. Okay, now ultimately when we have a bigger number of input possibility, then we are not going for a directed approach. So this, whatever the input values are, I am defining, that is a directed approach. When I am directly defining the input value. Another very popular approach in a system Verilog is I go for a randomization. Okay, I will generate the random value. Okay, but as I said that when I generate a random value, then I don't know what will be the output. Okay, if you define it with the seed, then probably some way you can predict that what can be the input sequence which can be repeated. But still, what once you run a random number, then what can be the output of that we are unknown. Okay, so for an input, maybe I can go for a randomization. So with the randomization input, different combination will be generated. But still, I need to take care that whether the important scenario is being covered. So let's consider this for this particular case. Okay, suppose that I need to verify this 1-bit full adder for a randomization. Okay, as I said that it is very easy to go for a directed approach, but just to explain the concept of the randomization, that suppose I want to apply a randomization concept to this particular full adder. So ultimately I know that these 4 input combinations are important. Okay, so now the idea is I need to randomize my input A, B, C, that combination at least 4 number of times, because then and then this 4 value is generated. But when you randomize it 4 number of times, that there is no surety that this 4 value will be only generated. Okay, it may happen that 001 which is being generated, it can be generated again, or maybe 010 where one input value is 1. So that can be also generated again. But what I am looking for is when I randomize this particular 1-bit full adder, then I should have a all 0 combination, all 1 combination. When one input value is 1, when one input value is 0, those are the 4 combinations which I am looking for. Okay, so I will define this in my coverage as a bin, that I am looking for this value. So what happens that whenever with the randomization, the value is being generated, and once I define with a bin, then it will detect that, it will look for that particular value. And once that particular value is being generated, then your coverage will show that now this value is being generated. Okay, so more about this we will discuss, as I said, that in our tomorrow's lecture. But in a system Verilog, when I talk about the randomization, then you need to think about the coverage. Okay, when I go for a directed case like this, all 8 possibility, then coverage is 100%, because I have verified all the possibility, which is 2 raised to 3, which is being there in a truth table. Now when I talk about a truth table, then for a truth table, what is the expected value? What is being defined in a truth table for a sum and carry? So in a truth table, I consider that whatever is being defined, the name itself suggests it is a truth table. So I need to believe that this is correct. So whenever I design a full adder and I will apply any particular input combination 000, 001. So at that time, whatever the actual value is being generated, always I will map with this value which is there in a truth table. So this sum and carry value, which is whatever is being defined in a truth table, that I am considering as my expected value. And when I give my input to a particular design, that is a 1-bit adder, then whatever the output is being generated, that is my actual value. And I will always compare my actual value with my expected value. Okay, so now just with this particular explanation, I am moving ahead. So this is just to maybe motivate you why we require a randomization. So suppose I have 100 register. I think, is there any doubt? Are you able to see the slides? Because somebody asking me to go for a canvas. Okay. Yes. Thank you. So definitely I will upload these slides on a canvas later on. Okay. So if I have 100 register, then for that register total number of states is 2 raised to 100. That is 10 raised to 30 and 10 raised to 24 million. Now, if I go for verifying each and every case, then probably it will take a decade for me to verify the design. Okay. Now, verification time is very crucial because, as I said, that in a total IC design cycle, 70% of efforts are verification. Probably you would like to reduce it. Okay. Because when I start with some specification, I would like to actually come up with my product as early as possible. Because in a VLSI market, the one which comes first, that will win the race. Okay. So presently in a COVID situation, basically all are trying for a vaccination. But probably everybody is pushing hard to get the vaccination first time in the market. So the one who will successfully come up with the result with the vaccination of this COVID-19, then probably he would capture the market all the way. So similarly in VLSI, if something designed, I plan and I want that it should be available as early as possible in the market. So in that particular process, if I can save some time and if I come up with the product early in the market, then it is always a great thing. So ultimately, in order to do so, we are having this verification strategy. Now, when I talk about the verification background, then initially in 90s, basically there is no separate verification engineer. Probably Ravi sir has also mentioned in his class that verification is not much popular before maybe 20-25 years back. Okay, because as a designer, once you design it, you will do some functional simulation. So that functional simulation only we are considering that this is good enough for a proper functionality checking of a particular design. But in the 90s, there is a one case from a Intel that Intel has come out with the one particular processor. So in that processor, there is some bug in a floating point number. Okay. So one particular floating point combination is not working properly. So probably they have done some verification at their end. But when that particular processor in the market, at that time it was observed that there was some bug, and for one particular combination of floating point number, the processor is not giving a correct answer. Now, when you consider this as a case, because you never know when you come out with the product, then what is the consumer expectation? Maybe that particular combination is important for one particular guy, and he will just sue you that your design is not working properly. Okay, so actually when you come out with a design, then you need to ensure that you have been verified thoroughly for your design, and it will work surely. Now, as I said in previously that for a verification engineer, it is very difficult. Okay, to say that it is a bug free. But as I said that ultimately you are not verifying on only one time. Okay, so we are talking about system Verilog. So system Verilog is a first level of verification. Then when you go synthesize, then after the synthesis process also there is a verification. Once you go for a layout design, then or maybe place and routing, after then also you can do the verification. So actually you are verifying each and every stage after your design process. Okay, and that is very important. But when I put my efforts for a verification, then of course it consumes some time. Now, as early as I can detect the bug, that is beneficial for me. Okay, so in a design cycle, what I would like to know, I would like to know a bug. If it is there in my design, then it should be detected as early as possible. So that will save your efforts. Of course, it will save your time, and of course, the money is also involved, because verification is not free, because you are paying a handsome money to a verification engineer. So all these factors are you need to take into consideration when you do a verification. So now I will talk about the randomization, how we can go for a randomization. So sir has explained with the LFSR. So exactly LFSR is a one thing which we can use for a randomization. Help. So in a that food adder example, I told you that if I ask you to go for a 64 design adder, then 2:64 into 2:64, that input combination you need to write it down. Then so ultimately I will not write down all the test cases. When my design input size is larger, I will go for a randomization, and that is a very good approach. And in a verification industry also, people are using this approach only, because for a smaller design, probably at a designer point of view, at the designer level also he can verify. Okay, but when you are being asked to go for a verification of a particular protocol, then ultimately you have so many input. Maybe not a two input. You can have an input combination of 8 and 10, and each of having a 64 bit or 32 bit. Okay. So at that particular moment, the directed case will not work. You need to go for a randomization, and that is the best approach. So how you can go for a randomization? So randomization, generation of the stimulus, is possible in a system Verilog. Even it was possible in Verilog also. Okay, but for a designer point of view, randomization functionality is very limited to use. Okay, but for a verification engineer, the randomization concept is very useful. You can go for some sort of setting of a parameter also. That also we will see. And randomization will help you to reach some corner cases. So corner cases is something which may not occur usual. Okay. So that corner cases, you can reach it by doing a randomization. Now there are some comparison of the directed case and a random case. So directed can detect the expected but, because you know that what are the input combination is you are being generated. But for a random cases, it can be used to find out some unexpected bug, because for a particular combination, if you observe that this is not working, then probably you would be also surprised that you never thought it where when designer has basically designed something, so he has never thought that this will not work for this particular input combination. But what is the advantage? So if I look at the directed cases, then it is time consuming. To write down all the directed cases one by one, it is very difficult. So randomization will reduce your effort tremendously. Okay, because you need to just use one function and you need to run a loop. If I want to generate a value of A for a randomization, let's say 100 number of times, then I will simply write down that functionality in the loop and I will run it 100 number of times. Then 100 different value of A will be generated. So your efforts will be reduced tremendously. Now there are some inbuilt functions which are there in a system value. Is a $u random. Okay, so that is just to randomize the value. So I will just explain it one example that $u random returns the unsigned. So it is an unsigned randomization. It will generate the 32-bit integer value. Okay. Now in a randomization, there are two ways to do it. One is to define a variable as a rand, and another is to define a rand C. Rand C means cyclic randomization. Okay. So what I mean by cyclic randomization, that when I consider, let's say that A is of 2 bit. Okay, so for a 2 bit A, there are total 4 possibilities: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Now when I consider A as a random value, and when I randomize it, and let's say that I randomize it for a 10 number of times. So 10 number of times this A value will be generated. Maybe it is a 0, 0, 0, 1. For that, when I run it the 10 number of times, all these 4 values, that is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1 will be generated. It may happen that your 4 number of times 0, 0, 4 number of times 0, 1 and 2 number of times 1, 0 is generated. Your 1, 1, 1 not at all is being generated, even though you run it 10 number of times. But 1, 1 is a very important scenario. Now the only thing is, if you want to ensure that it should be generated, then ultimately probability is not always 100%. So only thing is, instead of 10, you run it 100%. But even though it may be a slightly chance that even though you run it 100 number of times, then also 1 and 1 is not being generated. So there is not 100% probability with this random number. Okay. So sometimes what we would like to do, that we would like to do our cyclic randomization. In a cyclic it will ensure that for a that particular all the possible value is generated once, then and then it will repeat. So that means in a cyclic randomization, if I define a variable A with rand C, and if I run it 4 number of times, then for a 4 number of times it will generate the 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Maybe the sequence is different. Maybe first time 1, 1, then it is 0, 1, then it is 0, 0, then it is 1, 0. But when I run it 4 number of times, then all time these 4 different possibility which surely generated. Okay, so that is I mean by cyclic randomizer. Once the total possible value which could be generated by this variable, if that covers, then and then it will get repeated. You can randomize. Probably sir has used it for a major voting example, where for a variable dot that they have used some randomization, or some handle they have sir has used, and with that they will use a randomizer. Still this we will understand it with the example. Okay. Now in a randomization there is a way to go for a constant randomization. Okay. This is also very important. Okay. So what I mean by constant randomization, that I will provide some constraint during my randomization to ensure that this particular range will be covered. Okay. So in a simple case, that suppose that I am generating a, let's say that 16-bit number, that variable A is of 16 bit. Now in order to generate the different possibility of that 16 bit, that is 2 raised to 16. So 2 raised to 16 is how many possibility? I am not sure, but that is some figure that is being coming out. I think it is 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K, or probably it is 32K or 64K. Okay, 64K. So 64K total possibility is there. Now when I run it, let's say that probably 1 lakh times, I will randomize this my variable A. Now when I randomize this variable A, then the A different value will be generated. I have ensured that total possibility is 64K. So in order to cover all these possibility, I need to at least randomize it for a 64,000 number of times. But I am randomizing 1 lakh number of times to ensure that probably most of the possibility is covered. But from that, if you look at your input combination, always you can display that whatever the value is randomized. Okay, so for that we are using some print. So I will also cover today. Okay, so let's say that I have print that value, and then I observe that for a 64-bit my randomization value is being covered very well. But when all the values are 1, it is not being covered. possible combination is not being covered while I am doing a randomization. So for that, what I can do, I can simply restrict it, my window. Okay, let's say that during my 64-bit randomization, the particular value, integer value, which is 10,000 to the 12,000, there is no value in between 10,000 to 12,000. So now, if I again randomize it 1 lakh number of times with all possible combinations, then again there is a chances that again there will be no any input value which is being generated between this window. So now next time when I will run it, what I will do it to ensure that a value should be generated between 10,000 and 12,000. I will put a constraint. Okay, so I will constrain that during the randomization, the value should be greater than 10,000 and it should be less than 10,000. So randomization will work. Okay, but now the random value which is being generated, that will be inside this window only, 10,000 to 12,000. So that will be maximize my possibility that all the value which is there, because that is window is only of 2,000. So when I run it 1 lakh number of times, then there is most probably a chance that this all 2,000 value will be generated. Okay, so constant randomization is also very important. That where I will put a constraint, I will narrow down the window during my randomization so that I can get the maximum chance of getting one particular value to be covered. So there are some way to write it down. Constraint is a keyword that you need to define. Now this is just a name of the constraint. Okay. So A underscore LE underscore B. This is the name of the constraint. You can give it anything. So just to make it more meaningful, the name is written A underscore LE underscore B. So the constraint is whenever A you can say consider is a randomized value, B is a randomized value, but whenever A and B randomize the value, then always I need to ensure that value of A should be less or equal to B. Okay. Similarly, in a constraint that I want that C value, there may be a combination. Considering the case that when you verify the adder for A and B, and for that scene 0 and scene 1 should be considered, but you observe that scene 1 is not being considered so many times. So you will put the constraint that scene should be 1 when my A and B is random. Your input value. So there can be a window that it could be between 2 to 8. It can be always greater than 0 if I want to do it. So A greater than 0, B greater than 0, C greater than. So whatever the constraint that you would like to provide, that during the randomization it should cover, that you can provide it with the constraint. Okay. So whenever you are doing a constraint, you are constructing the, you are using a constraint, then you need to always take care that whenever you provide the constraint, then it should not be conflicting with each other. Just to explain one case, that suppose that I am defining a constraint that X Z should be greater than X. Now if you look at that first two constraints, then from this two constraint one can easily make out that X should be greater than Z if I consider first two constraints. But when I look at the third constraint, then it is totally conflicting. So during the randomization, the tool will also get confused that what I need to do, whether I need to go for X greater than Z or I need to go for a Z greater than X. Okay. So whenever you are providing a constraint, then you need to just take care of that. Otherwise, the tool will throw an error to you. Okay. So here just to ensure that this X, so X variable, X instant is just a handle, dot randomize. So through this, you are randomizing the value of X and you are ensuring that equal to 0. Then there is some method that you would like to print. Okay. Just to cover some example, what I am trying to do, that I am trying to go through one website which is also very useful. You will find it out that now I am screening, I am sharing my screen. Okay, just to I hope you are all able to see my screen. hope you all are able to see my screen. I opened one website. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is very useful website. You can actually search out this. The website is testbench.in. You will find out very good material. Okay, so just I opened the Verilog, where system Verilog, all the concept is explained. For the Verilog also, all the concept is explained. OpenVera, if you are interested, then also you can do it. Even for somebody is interested in some methodology that somebody is asking in one, with the example is explained. Okay. So for me, just I opened it particular page of this where randomization is there. So probably this particular page. Okay. Where randomization is there. So just to explain you. Okay. Now if you look at the example of a randomization. So we have seen that $u random, okay, which is to be generated to unsigned random number. Now here in a simple code, what is being written? Module TB. Okay. So whenever you are writing a test bench, there will be no port. When you talk about the Verilog, then in a module you would define some ports. But whenever you talk about the test bench will not have any port. There will be no input, there will be no output. Okay. So here module, then some input. I am defining integer, unsigned. This is a data type. So my variable name is address. For this particular address, नहीं हो रहा. I am not sure. Can't see the website, sir. Only Google search page is visible. Okay, let me check. Thank you. Okay, so let me check that what is there missing. Okay, yeah. Huh. Probably it was my mistake. I have said this means Google Chrome, and then probably I went to the Internet Explorer. I think now this page is visible where it is written that system Verilog OpenVera testbench.in. That page is visible. Okay, so over here actually I am just going for a randomization. I am just clicking one particular page which is of my interest. Okay, here for this particular page, if you go for a testbench.in, this is a very useful website. If you want to go for a maybe for a Verilog or system Verilog, all the basic functionality is given to you. Okay, so usually in a system Verilog, I prefer to go to a web material because it is very well available. Okay, there are some books also that one of the reference manuals that sir has suggested, system Verilog reference manual, that you can go. There are few books also there that I will also mention you at the end of my lecture. But usually I prefer to go for a website. So this is one of them. Okay, so testbench.in. So here on this particular web page, if I look at this, then there is a one function which is a $random. Okay, so there is a one function which is a $random. Now, in a $random, it is basically u random. So that is an unsigned random integer. It will go. So now if you look at this particular code, what is being written here? I have defined address. Address is a data type of integer which is of unsigned type. Okay, then there is an initial statement. Then I am writing begin, repeat 5 number of times. I am defining address as a $u random. So what it will do? For an address, 5 different value will be generated. So here at the below the result is also given. Okay, but just to run it, let's go to a EDA playground. So EDA playground, if you go, then EDA playground, you can go use EDA Playground for your system Verilog code also. So I am just copying this code in order to just run it. I think it is loading. Okay, the page is open now. I am just simply saving. Now, okay. Now here you need to ensure that the test bench system Verilog is selected. Presently I am not using any U. Then for a verification, okay, 1 minute. Okay, for a tool, this is important. Tool and simulator. So I think probably I have tried it out with the Questa sim, but probably the Synopsys and Cadence will also work. So presently just select a Mentor Questa sim and try to run it. Log in to save edits. Just I'm logging it so that actually I can do some sort of editing and I can save this. Okay, so now this code is being written. Now what is there? I am repeating a address. Address is being defined as a $root number and I am displaying. Okay, just to want to see that whatever the random value of the address is being generated. Okay, so I will run it. So you just observe that in a window address 5 different values is being generated. So it is actually 32-bit integer. So this much large value is being generated. Now if I run it second time, then it can be a different value. So don't go for with this that sir here तो value कुछ और आ रही है और आपने जो रन किया उसमें अलग है. ये value अलग हो सकती है. ठीक है, ये जो values यहाँ पे define किए result में और आप रन करोगे वो different हो सकते हैं because it is a random. So even whatever the code is I have written on a EDA Playground, if I run it second number of time, then also there would be a different value. Okay, so with this random, the different value will be generated just to show you that how it is being working. Okay, so this way you can try out a different example. Just go below this. So here also there is another example. Okay, here they have explained the randomization concept with the seed. Okay, so seed is also one of the important factor. So if yesterday, if you remember that sir has explained about the LFSR. So for the LFSR, he initially means explained that particularly in a hardware, we are storing some initial value. If it is a 3-bit shift register, then probably I am storing initially 101. So once I store 101, then after that, if I run 5 number of time, then I actually what happens that 5 value will be random, but every time when I store 101, those 5 random value will be same. Okay, so once I define a seed and with that if I run the randomization, then whatever the output is there for that particular seed, the values will be same. Okay, so that because I am defining an initial sequence which is being stored in a value will be shifted and it will be some generating some predefined pattern. Okay, so this is the same example that is being actually explained it over here. The seed is being defined, then actually in a $u random in a bracket you are defining seed. So previously it is only $u random, there is no value inside the bracket, but here I am defining a seed. So that means for a random value, I am defining some initial value which is being stored in a shift register. Now when I run it for some number of time, then it will have some predefined value which is being generated. So if you observe that in a result, when the seed is 2, the number value is same. This is just to explain you the concept of seed. So once you define a seed, which is the initial storage in your shift register, then even though you randomize, okay, now why it is randomized? Because you can predict what is the next value. If I look at 1, 2, next is 7, then again 2, then it is 1. So how this value is being generated or how the sequence is being generated, that is actually not in our control. It is purely on random basis. But once you define a seed which is same, then probably the sequence which is being generated through a randomization is the same. Now there are some different example, that is $u random range, so 25 to 20. So what happens that the value which is being generated, which is between 25 to 20 only. You just observe that number 1 in a result section, 25, 22, 21, 25 for 55 to 50. So value which is being generated. So this is another way of defining a constraint. This is similar to a constraint. I am defining a range. So whatever the random value is being generated, that is between these two values. Okay. So there are number of example. Okay, which is there over here. Maybe you would like to go through it one by one. Okay. I am just explaining some initial to motivate you that how you can do it. But I am not explaining all the example. Okay. So next thing that I would like to start with the assertion. But before that, probably if you have any doubt till now, then you can ask me. 2-minute break. So if you have any doubt, then just please write it down in a chat box. I would be more than happy to answer you. Before moving to my second part, which is assertion.